My HOA had my car towed from right in front of my house, claiming I was parked on community property. But what they didn't know was that the road they towed it from didn't belong to them. I moved into this neighborhood 2 years ago. It was marketed as a premium private community. Quiet streets, controlled access, strict HOA management. You know the type. At first, I didn't mind the rules. Everything looked clean, organized, predictable, and honestly, I liked that. My house sat at the very end of a cul-de-sac, which meant less traffic, more privacy, and one long stretch of pavement leading right up to my driveway. That stretch? It looked like every other road in the neighborhood. Same asphalt, same curbs, same layout. Nothing special. At least not on the surface. About 3 months after I moved in, a new HOA president took over. His name was Richard. And unlike the previous board, Richard didn't care about balance. He cared about control. The first thing he did? Parking enforcement. Suddenly, cars parked on the street started getting warnings, then fines, then threats. It didn't matter if it was in front of your own house. According to him, the streets were HOA-managed property, which meant he could regulate them however he wanted. Most people complied, paid the fines, adjusted. I didn't, because something about that claim didn't sit right with me. One evening, I parked my car just outside my driveway. Not blocking anything, not causing issues, just temporarily unloading groceries. The next morning, bright orange notice on my windshield. Violation, unauthorized street parking. $150 fine. I laughed, then I ignored it. A week later, it happened again. Same fine, same warning. This time, I went to the HOA office. Richard was exactly what you'd expect. Perfect posture, cold tone, that practiced smile that never reaches the eyes. "You've accumulated multiple violations," he said. "For parking in front of your own house?" I asked. "For parking on HOA-controlled roads," he corrected. I asked him a simple question. "Can you show me where it says the HOA owns the roads?" He didn't hesitate. "It's in the governing authority." That wasn't an answer, that was a deflection. And I noticed it immediately. I refused to pay. That's when things escalated. My fines jumped from $150 to $600 to $2,000 within a month. Then came the real move, a towing notice. Continued violation will result in vehicle impoundment. I knew they were bluffing, until they weren't, because one morning my car was gone. Just gone. No warning, no call, nothing. I stepped outside thinking it had been stolen. Then I saw the small sign placed near the curb. Enforced by HOA authority. That's when it hit me. They actually did it. They towed my car from right in front of my house. But that wasn't the worst part. When I called the towing company, they told me something interesting. We were contracted directly by the HOA. Full authorization. Full authorization. That phrase stuck with me. Because authorization only matters if you actually have it. I paid to get my car back. Not because I agreed, but because I needed it. Then I started digging. I pulled up the HOA documents. Every page, every clause, every line about road authority. And here's what I found. They had control over parking rules, enforcement policies, fines. But nowhere did it say they owned the roads, which meant their authority might not extend as far as they claimed. That's when I went deeper. County records, zoning maps, development filings. And that's when everything changed. The road in front of my house was never transferred to the HOA, not fully. During the original development, the builder retained ownership of certain access roads for utility and maintenance purposes. Most of those were eventually handed over, except one, the cul-de-sac where my house sat. For some reason, that transfer never happened, which meant legally that road wasn't HOA property. It wasn't public either. It was still tied to the original developer's holding entity, and that entity had been dissolved years ago, its assets quietly absorbed by a private buyer, and that buyer was me. I had purchased a small bundle of development remnants years back as part of an unrelated investment, old utility rights, unused easements, Minor land fragments. At the time, it didn't seem important. Just paperwork. But buried in that paperwork was the ownership of that exact road segment. The one in front of my house. The one they towed my car from. And they had no idea. Instead of confronting them immediately, I waited. Because I wanted to see how far Richard would go. Turns out, pretty far. A week later, I received a legal notice demanding payment of all accumulated fines. Total? Over $12,000. Or they would place a lien on my home. That was the moment. They crossed from annoying to reckless. I responded with one letter, from my lawyer. Attached, proof of road ownership, property transfer documents, county verification, and a formal notice of unlawful towing and property interference. The reaction was immediate. Emergency HOA meeting, mandatory attendance. This time, the room felt different. Tense, uncertain. Richard still stood at the front, confident, until my lawyer started speaking. The vehicle in question was removed from property not owned or controlled by the HOA. Silence. Therefore, the towing constitutes unlawful seizure. More silence. And all fines associated with said enforcement are invalid. Richard tried to interrupt. This is incorrect. The HOA governs. No, my lawyer said. You assumed authority you did not have. Then came the final blow. We are pursuing compensation for damages, unlawful enforcement, and misuse of authority. The room shifted instantly. Board members started whispering, looking at each other, not at Richard, because they realized this wasn't a small mistake. This was liability, big liability. Within a week, all fines erased, towing fees reimbursed, additional settlement offered, HOA enforcement policy suspended, and Richard removed. Quietly. No announcement, no apology, just gone. Because when authority collapses, it collapses fast. A few days later, I parked my car in the exact same spot. Same curb, same position. No notices, no threats, no orange stickers, just silence. Because now they knew. That road was never theirs to control, and it never would be. As I walked inside, I glanced back once, at the empty stretch of pavement they thought they owned. And I couldn't help myself but smile, because in the end, they didn't tow my car off their road. They towed it off mine.